All right, so we will start our meeting. So welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences Telehealth Committee meeting. Today is August 6th, 2021, and the time now is 11:07 a.m. And this meeting is held via the WebEx platform in pursuant to the governor's executive order N2520 dated March 12, 2020. So at this time, I would like to have Christina take to call roll and establish a quorum. Thank you.
Christina Wong,
Here.
Susan Friedman,
Here.
and for the record, Chris Jones is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Christina. And so I would like to move to have the board members and the staff introduce themselves. So I'll start first. I'm Christina Wong. I'm the LCSW member, also the chair of this committee. And Susan.
I'm Susan Friedman. I'm a public member of this committee. And I'm also on the LA County Board of Mental Health.
Thank you very much. So let's go with the staff. Steve, please.
Hi, Steve Sodergren, the Executive Officer of the Board. Welcome.
Thank you. Susan, Roseanne.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Helms. I'm the Legislative Manager for the Board.
Thank you. Christy.
Good morning, Christy Berger, Regulatory Analyst for the Board.
Thank you. And we have Christina.
Hi, Christina Kitamura, Administrative Analyst for the Board.
Thank you. And last but not the least, Sabina.
Good morning, Sabina Knight, Legal Counsel for the Board.
Thank you. And we also have our moderators, Shelley, and our professional camera person, Cesar, with us. So thank you so much. And then the item number 3, the consent calendar, is being tabled for the next meeting. So we will move to item number 4, the overview of the committee's roles and tasks. Roseanne, please.
Yeah, yes. So we kind of do an overview to start our meeting every time we meet so that we can see the progress we've made on our sort of to-do list, which is shown in attachment A. So we've had a lot of discussions at this meeting, good discussion so far. We've discussed our existing statutes and regulations to telehealth, and a proposed changes agreed to so far, shown in attachment B. We've talked about laws of other states that pertain to temporary practice across state lines, and we're going to pick up that discussion at a future meeting. Kind of the topics we're discussing right now today are the potential telehealth coursework requirement for licensees and registrants. We're going to talk about that today. Also, clarification of the telehealth laws for associates and trainees. That discussion is going to be continued today. We are not going to talk about supervision via video conferencing today. We're actually going to talk about that on September 10th. We're going to do a special sort of breakout telehealth committee as part of our board meeting. That day it'll be separate from the board meeting, but it will be a little committee meeting. We've started a telehealth survey, and we've put 4 surveys out on our website and to our associations and contacts, and on our social media. There's a survey for associates, a survey for students, a survey for school programs, and a survey for supervisors. So we're hoping to get a lot of good data about what's going on with supervision via video conferencing, what's going on with telehealth training, and things like that. And so we're hoping to get have the results at the September 10th meeting and discuss where to go with that piece from there once more information is gathered. So that is the overview. Are there any discussion on that?
I want to actually thank those who have responded to the survey, and the more responses we get, it would definitely help us, include, the ideas. And you never know, that, you never know, the wonderful ideas that can generate from the survey. So I want to thank those who responded, and I also want to encourage those who have not answered it. Take the chance. It's a really, really good questionnaire. And so, so hopefully, when the close that, we can take a look and really, based on that information, to develop some good legislative change. So, yeah. So, Susan, go ahead.
I wanted to know if we're going to get the results from these surveys before the September 10th meeting so we can know what's going on.
Roseanne?
That'll be part of the the meeting materials. The surveys close. Most of them close on August 20th, with the exception of we're keeping the schools one open a little bit longer because schools are just coming back in. So we'll analyze the results and prepare some meeting materials for discussion at the meeting.
Thank you.
Any other question? Let's see. Moderator, let's open up the Q&A and see if there's any other public comments. A question for Roseanne.
This is the moderator. We've opened the Q&A panel. We will be utilizing the Q&A panel and the raised hand feature for a public comment today. If you'd like to make a comment through the Q&A panel, you can locate that Q&A icon on your screen, which looks like a question mark inside of a square. When you click on that, it should open a text box. You can simply type comment into the text box and submit that to our panelists. If you're looking to use the hand raise feature, you can locate that hand icon next to your name and you can click it to raise and lower your hand. Our first comment comes from Benjamin Caldwell. And just as a reminder, this is our new WebEx world. And instead of me being able to unmute your microphone directly, when I go to unmute your microphone, it will actually send you a message at your end that allows you to click on a button that says unmute me. And that gives you the control to then unmute your microphone. So Ben, you may unmute your line.
Committee members and staff, good morning.
Good morning.
Ben Caldwell, licensed MFT, and this is in relation to that September 10th discussion. And this may already be sort of in the works. I wanted to ask that as part of that discussion on September 10th about trainees and supervision, specifically online supervision, could we get some information to whatever degree it's available about whether there have been, and if so, how many, complaints related to online supervision of trainees during the pandemic, during the time we've had these waivers? My impression anecdotally is that it's actually gone really quite well, quite smoothly, which suggests that there would be a great opportunity for continued online supervision of trainees going forward. But I also want to ensure as much as possible that decisions around this are driven by data. And the surveys are an important part of that. Also, any information available about complaints related to the topic, I think would be helpful as well. Thank you.
Okay. So,
And
Roseanne, yes, go ahead.
Our next comment comes from, and I'm going to apologize, I'm going to attempt to pronounce your last name, Tony Rusminier. I have sent you a message. You may unmute your line.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for taking my comment. You totally nailed my name. Congratulations. This comment is about the question about online supervision. I saw the survey. Thank you for doing the survey. I think it's a great idea to do the survey. I am a psychologist. I wrote a book a few years ago on using technology for clinical supervision, which focused mostly on online supervision. I just wanted to briefly summarize the findings. We did a literature review of over 60 peer-reviewed studies on this topic. The studies looked into both quantitative and qualitative data regarding online supervision. So this study review was done pre-COVID. So the number of studies have only gone up since then. And our overall finding was that online supervision was largely equivalent to in-person supervision. In particular, the supervisory working alliance was built just as quickly and maintained just as well as in-person supervision. I know that's one of the more common concerns people have had about this. There are also a number of benefits beyond increased accessibility that I wanted to highlight. There were non-traditional students, particularly parents or single parents, said online supervision really let them engage in graduate training where they wouldn't have been able to before. It really increased accessibility to students in rural areas. I know we have a real shortage of licensed trained therapists in rural areas. So I think this can really help in that way. And there are also students who do not have a lot of financial resources, which is unfortunately necessary to commute to in-person supervision, particularly in areas like Los Angeles or San Francisco. There are also some surprising findings I just want to highlight, where some trainees reported that they prepared more for online supervision than in-person supervision. That was really interesting. Some felt less anxiety as well. So we're continuing to do more research on this. I think a lot is going to come out of the COVID year. The most pronounced kind of problem or concern were some supervisors just really preferred in-person supervision. And so what I would feel hesitant about is anything that mandates supervisors where they have to provide it online. I think that might be pushing it for some supervisors. And I'm happy to send a PDF of the literature review to the committee if anyone would like it. Please just maybe put an email in the comments or and I'll know where to send it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Thank you so
we have,
much.
next comment comes from Miranda Fury. And just as a reminder, today this comment period is for the committee's roles. Miranda, you may unmute your microphone.
A chance to comment. And I realize the agenda is not about in-person supervision, but I mean, telehealth supervision, but I wanted to quickly say, it's a serious concern for a lot of people, including me, who are disabled, and I will lose my position if the waiver is not extended. And I, I'm concerned about accommodation. So I'm wondering if I could ask this committee or to convey it to the board, whoever does this, to ask that the waiver on August 31st be extended to allow for the results of the survey, to allow for the September 10th meeting, to explore, best practices, research that's been discussed, all of the data, and also to take in consideration accommodations, not just for supervisors, but for trainees and students and associates who may not have easy access to in-person supervision, but could, really contribute to the field enormously in their own way if they were allowed to be accommodated. So again, I'm just requesting that the board requests the DCA extend the waiver to give more time for this to be explored before the waiver lapses. So thank you very much for your consideration. I appreciate your ears, and I appreciate this committee and the survey and everything that you're doing. It feels very good to have a voice, so thank you.
Thank you so much. So, moderator, any other from the public and any other hand raise or Q&A request?
One moment, let me check. No other comments for this item. I will close the panel.
Thank you very much. So, so thanks for those who have made, suggestion and comments and so, so this particular feedback, this particular discussion is really about like the overview of the committee's role and tasks. And so thanks for those who have given your idea. And, I would also encourage, you all that if you think that is appropriate, maybe to just summarize your suggestion again in our following agenda item, and which is a suggestion for future agenda item, and so for for the board staff to be able to consider, or the board members to consider. Steve?
Yeah, I mean, we all the issues that have been raised, we are aware of, and we will be pursuing in future conversations, or that we're working on currently. So thank you all for your comments. I appreciate it.
That is wonderful. So in that sense, let's move to the next agenda item, which is the discussion and possible recommendation regarding potential telehealth coursework requirement. And I believe it's Roseanne again.
Yeah. So the committee expressed interest when we started talking about telehealth, about requiring training or coursework about delivery of mental health services to clients via telehealth to ensure that the licensees are confident in its delivery. So at its June meeting, this committee directed staff to draft language to require such training using the recently added statute requiring coursework in suicide risk assessment and intervention as a model. So we have drafted some proposed language that is what it would potentially look like. It's just a rough draft. It's shown in attachment A. And so here are some of the things that this particular draft language does. It would require applicants for licensure on or after January 1, 2023 to submit proof of completion of 6 hours of training or coursework in the provision of mental health services via telehealth with their application for licensure. It would also require licensees upon their first renewal on or after January 1, 2023 to attest to having completed 6 hours of training or coursework in the provision of mental health services via telehealth. And then finally, it would specify that the training or coursework is a one-time requirement and it could either be completed as a part of the qualifying degree program or by taking a CE course. So in terms of a little background, the board has several courses that are required either as a condition of licensure or post-licensure that licensees must submit that they've taken. A lot of them are one-time requirements, the most recent being the suicide risk assessment or intervention, which we just implemented this past January 1st. And upon renewal, all licensees need to show, or they need to attest to the fact that they have taken this one-time coursework. So in the proposed language, we've kind of come up with a draft, and it's for discussion today. And I have a number of questions that I sort of outlined that the committee might want to take a look at. Is 6 hours an appropriate amount of training or coursework for this topic? Is the timing of when the training or coursework required appropriate? It would be at the time of application for licensure for new applicants. Or at renewal for current licensees. The proposal does not, one thing that's a little different than the suicide risk assessment, I did not write in the proposal allows experience to count. It would be specifically coursework, and that's because that I felt in looking at this that that probably most people have at this point during the pandemic have probably not practiced via telehealth. And the idea is really to take a course on competency. So that's why applied experience is not built into this particular proposal. Another question would delayed implementation be needed? If it's successfully run as legislation this next year, it would be signed in late September or early October, and then there would be a 3-month window before it became effective. It would become effective, best case scenario, January 1, 2023. Does the training or coursework description used in the proposal, I've used the language provision of mental health services via telehealth, does that accurately capture what the board is trying to achieve, or is a different language would different language be better, or should specific topics be called out? And then finally, I just wanted to point out that this does not address supervisors doesn't address training for supervisors regarding video conference supervision. If the committee wishes to address this, it would need to be done via regulations because supervisors have course requirements in regulations, so that would need to be done separately. The board is in the process of conducting those 4 surveys, which I alluded to earlier, and we are asking some questions about school offerings of coursework regarding this topic, and also what topics are covered. So we might get a little bit more idea of what topics are being covered and whether or not those topics should be listed when we see the survey results on September 10th. So that is something to keep in mind as we go through today's discussion as well. And with that, I will open it up for discussion.
Thank you very much, Roseanne. So this is an attempt again, to set, the language. So at least to, to start getting movement, through the committees and, and then the board, and then make sure that, we can catch the, the legislative cycle, to introduce bill and, so that, we can get the, go through, the legislative process to get this, legitimized or get it approved. So, so I think that, just for myself, in answering some of your, questions, Roseanne, I think 6 hours coursework is appropriate. The timing is appropriate, and delay implementation. I think if we can get this done ASAP, it's better. And since we, I can really see that, that everyone is, still a little bit, more, in, we're stepping into a gray area. And so it would actually be great that, we can implement this as soon as possible so that, we can ensure the licensees and the registrants, have a certain level of the competency. And provision of mental health services via telehealth. So I'm thinking about, so I'm more concerned, I'm thinking about provision of mental health services is really broad, which is good. And I'm also wondering, say, whether it will embrace, the legal and the ethical standard. So, to me, that is another, pretty big area. So I don't know if, what I don't have a whole lot of recommendation how I can, incorporate that. But I think if we can be able to also not just about the provision, but really, call out, the legal and the, ethical practice aspect, I think that would be really great. That's it. That's my, again, to the point answer or some comments. So, Roseanne, do you have any suggestion about, that, idea that I have, about like calling out the legal and ethical practice? Or maybe that's it. So, Roseanne can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I guess I'd like to hear maybe um, from the attendees of the meeting,
Also.
maybe what they think about that. One other thing I wanted to point out for a discussion is, this doesn't capture registrants wouldn't be necessarily, they would probably get it in their school program, but it requires an applicant for licensure, so it wouldn't be at registration. The thought being that these people that are associates are under supervision, but maybe it's better to require it at registration. I'm not sure going forward. So that's another thing, just really subtle thing I wanted to point out that's important.
Right, right.
Well, I have questions. Can you
Go
hear
ahead.
me? My question is, if this required legislation and it wouldn't be effective until 2023, I think, personally, I think we are so far behind the ball on this that it doesn't make any sense. Because what would make most sense to me would be to right now talk to the deans of a few social work schools or whatever place we think we can get the best information and find out what they are telling their students, because everybody is practicing telehealth now. Nobody, or very rarely anybody, is meeting in person because it's too dangerous right now. So if we're going to be waiting till 2023 for a piece of legislation, that seems to me like, yeah, but this happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Why are you telling me this now?
Well, Susan, I think that, okay, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, part of the survey process, I think we're asking in that survey, we did reach out to the schools to see what they, what kind of content they may have been providing for that. So we'll get a better idea of that. Unfortunately, we have to go through the legislative process to really make any sort of, requirement for this. But I think we will get a better idea after the survey, and I'm assuming that most institutions probably do have this coursework. So I think September 10th, when we get that back, we can definitely see and then move forward with that. So I think, like Roseanne was saying, this is really working with people that would be applying for for the clinical kind of licensure exam. So they're close to being done with, they've been probably out of school for quite a few years. And this will kind of address those people that may, for some reason, 4 years ago, when telehealth maybe wasn't as prevalent, did not get that education, I'm assuming. So
Okay.
that's,
What I'm really curious about, Steve, is what do we think this education should actually be? Is it technical? Is it teaching people how to use various sources? Or is it really a different kind of therapy? I mean, there is that television program, which I really like, to tell you the truth. I think it's on HBO. And it used to be with Gabriel Byrne, and now it's with a different therapist.
Mhm.
And if you observe it, it seems like they're in the same room, but they're not in the same room. And you can tell they're not in the same room by the way it's shot. But so I'm very curious what we're talking about as far as 6 hours of specific training. Are we talking about something more than technical?
yeah, I think for us, it's really because we are the public protection agency. So what we're really going to be looking at is we would probably want, and I'm assuming we might have to define kind of what the course should contain. We do that in other sort of CEs. But what we're really looking for is not how to use, how to use the technical side of it, but what are the legal obligations for you? I mean, how do you notify, what are you going to do in case of an emergency? If you're on the phone or on, video conferencing with this client, what do you do? Do you understand how to use, do you understand what you need to do? There's lots of other legal obligations that our laws don't necessarily touch with, but with, you're going to be looking at confidentiality, how, are you aware that you really shouldn't be doing, therapy in Starbucks, and because that's going to probably break confidentiality. So it's kind of stuff that we're not necessarily the technical side, but the legal and ethical obligations that they would
Okay.
do.
I
So,
get that, obviously.
mhm.
But okay, I get that, obviously, but I'm just wondering, is the legislation we're talking about going to be spelling out exactly what it is that we're talking about right now?
Well, unfortunately, with the CE, unless we create our own CE, which we cannot do, it's way beyond our means. Um, we would have to kind of put a note in there as to say, I would say assume this is the 6-hour course must contain must contain a discussion about, you can expand on it, ethical and legal obligations, but reporting requirements, what's the proper way to, we would have to define it a little bit. And then from there, courses would be designs, associations, and the CE providers. There already exist out there currently, these coursework. I mean, so they would have to kind of look at that to see if they can work towards that. But
Okay.
yeah.
My last question is there any way to fast track it so that it goes into effect or gets passed and signed before goes into effect before 2023? Because that sounds to me like, I don't know, because people are going to look at us like 2023.
No, I totally appreciate that sentiment. And I know with telehealth, especially, I would love to implement stuff right now because it is, I don't like to look like we're, and especially with California, 2023, I know telehealth has been around for quite a while. But unfortunately, there's really not, we have to go through the process. The one thing I think that I want the sooner the better, but like I said before, there is currently a lot of coursework and stuff that's going on out there in education, and people are taking courses in telehealth. And I think, I forgot who we heard from before, but there was a CE provider that was doing a telehealth course, and they were getting a lot of people signing up just to get some more information. So that's really positive. So I think, moving into this telehealth, the clinicians, registrants, licensees are all taking a a good look at that and making sure that they kind of understand that legal obligation. So this would just be like a final kind of, we really do want to make sure that you are looking at that. But unfortunately, I know 2023 seems like a far away, but I know Roseanne and I were like, no, that's pretty quick with implementing something like this too. So, but I hear you though.
So Susan, I want to just, add a little bit more. I think the urgency definitely is there. We feel that, we need to protect, our consumers right now and just making sure that our licensees and registrants are competent to practice. So, based on, most of all of the licensees' responsibility, the code of ethics, that they have to, registrants, licensees, they have to really seek, education or consultation if you feel that, that you're not competent in that way, or making referrals. So there, there's already laid out, may not be necessarily about telehealth, but, but in general, any of the, situation that they have to seek, education and to improve themselves, to seek knowledge, so that they feel that, they are able to, deliver the service, in the most competent manner. And so it's written in their code of ethics. And so, so for now, what it means is that we just have to trust that, that the licenses and registrants are doing the right thing. And so the legislative changes means that, we're setting the standard, to be more specific about the direction where we should go. And so that's really where we're coming from. We're trying to clean up the gray and make it a little bit more, distinctive and more defined. So, so I think we're doing the job. And yes, that's definitely, seems very long, no doubt. But at the same time, unfortunately, California really, we're a big state. And so it takes a while to make sure that these law, are able to, written, and, make sure that, these, the regulations, go through the process, to have the check and balance so that, that to have the right approval. So anyway, I hope, between, Steve, and myself gave you, the answer, and also to the public, to understand that, yes, we're trying the best we can. And actually, in our previous session, meeting, that I was just pointing out that the supervision legislative package, we get it approved in 2016, and there a part of it is still going through, the legislative cycle, and it's been 5 years. And so, actually, to be able to discuss an item and maybe possibly to get the governor to sign and implement by 2023, it's actually pretty fast. And so, just put it out there for, education purpose. So at this time, I like to open up for the public. I would like to hear from the public about, any feedback. And so moderator, would you please open up the Q&A panel?
This is the moderator. I begin open the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment using this feature, please click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text box, and submit that to our panelists. Alternatively, you may also raise your hand by clicking on the small hand icon next to your name. And our first comment comes from Ben Caldwell. Ben, you may unmute your line.
Thank you very much. 3 things quickly. The first is kind of in agreement with Ms. Friedman, that I wonder about the necessity of this particular requirement. And please don't take that as opposition, just take that as wondering. Because everyone has been doing telehealth since March of 2020. By and large, it seems to have been going pretty well. And with our continuing education that we offer at Simple Practice, we've had, and I don't know whether we were the provider, Steve, that you were talking about earlier. I know there are other providers who've been doing the same thing. At the beginning of the pandemic, we made a fair amount of telehealth CE available as quickly as we could, some of it for free, and we've had thousands of people take us up on that. It is also an ethical obligation for all the major mental health professions that if you're going to use any kind of technology and service delivery, that you need to be proficient and trained in the use of that technology for service delivery. So the addition of a 6-hour training requirement, while certainly very clearly well intended, would be coming well after the time that everybody started doing telehealth, and may be duplicative in a way that's not necessary. One option for consideration, if we're thinking that telehealth is going to remain part of the landscape for the long term, as it seems it will be, might be worth considering adding it as a curriculum requirement, and looking at structuring it into the process of training for all therapists. Secondly, to the question of timing, I understand the benefit in terms of implementation of tying it to someone's next license renewal, or for associates tying it to the process of getting licensed. But that does mean that for most folks, that's going to be years after they have been providing telehealth that they would need to get training in providing telehealth. For associates, they might be providing telehealth under supervision for a year of practicum as well as 6 years of being an associate before they would be required to have training in doing so, at least as far as the board is concerned. Another option might be to say that as of whatever delayed implementation date, July 1st of 2023 or January 1 of 24, that if you are going to offer services via telehealth, prior to doing so, you need to have done whatever the training requirement is going to be. Now, that comes with its own problems, so it's just something to consider as an option. And then lastly, in terms of content for the course, there are a number of courses, including some that we offer, that are broadly about doing telehealth effectively and ethically, that we make available to practitioners across the country. It would be helpful to get clarity about whether this particular course, if required, would need to be a state-specific course. In other words, does it need to specifically address issues of California law and regulation, or would it be acceptable for somebody to take a certification course they might have done for some kind of a national credential in providing telehealth services? So with those three things, I greatly appreciate the thought that's going into this, and I know that the board is trying to move quickly and advance public protection. Those are all good things. I just appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Moderator, who's next?
Our next comment comes from Jay Alley. Jen, you may unmute your line.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Alley with CAMP, the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. And, we appreciate the thoughtfulness on the committee of their discussions, and Ben's comments were very thoughtful. And CAMP has been, very supportive and encouraging of the BBS to conduct the survey. And we've put that survey out to, in every little manner that we can to our membership. Highlighted as our director's message on our next newsletter and whatnot. And so, we're a little concerned about, promoting a survey with specific questions regarding telehealth training, what topics should be covered, and then, reporting that the board's made a decision. We think it's a little bit disingenuous to ask the industry what it is that they think and then make a decision, to mandate a new training course of 6 hours. We don't know how 6 hours was determined to be the appropriate length of time for continuing education, especially based on the experience and the offerings of telehealth throughout the pandemic by CAMP and other associations, has been referenced. And so we just, we have some concerns. We appreciate the need to expedite and how long it can take to get, board approval for legislation and then move forward. But we just really question the need and think that it might be, the survey responses should have some insight on how this should be approached moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. Moderator, anybody else?
That's it. That's all for our requests right now. Would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, that would be good. Thank you so much.
Actually, we had just one more pop in right before. Okay. Maria Espita, you may unmute your line. Or Mario, my apologies.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. We can
Oh,
hear you.
hello, good morning. This is Mario Espitia, licensed clinical social worker and also part of NESW California. I did review the proposal for the telehealth, and I'm supportive and also appreciative of the survey that is going around to obtain people's input. Uh, what I would suggest to add into any future documents of what is being proposed is to add a little more of the rationale as to why this kind of course will be mandated. Of course, we can all agree that it's for public protection, but I think licensees and associates would appreciate more discussion, more language included into the proposal as to why this kind of course is being or will be mandated in the future. Um, I think it, of course, uh, protecting the public, but in order to to continue to foster that positive relationship with associates and licensees, it would be beneficial to be able to provide a more extensive explanation. And I know the survey results will help with that. And that is all. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mario. So moderator, anybody else?
That looks like it for now.
Okay. So Roseanne, so it looks like, that's, really interesting about, the content, whether the phrase of the provision of mental health services, I don't know if you feel that you get more feedback, but it looks like, that the very distinctive one is about Ben's comments about California specific.
Mhm.
And I like that, so thank you, Ben. I like that. And then, so, and it looks like, after we get back from the result, of the survey, then we might have some ideas, about, how to refine, that particular language about the class, or the content. So I am wondering, in that sense, how would you like to proceed?
I think what I'm hearing is, yeah, there definitely this is kind of a preview of a couple of things. I heard Ben about the California specific, you about the legal and ethics. Maybe I think we just leave it for now. We have kind of a base, and let's see what the survey results are on September 10th, and then figure out how to go from there. With the caveat that we might not have language September 10th. This is going to take a while to work out. So let's see what kind of feedback in terms of what's being offered or not, and what content is there and how much we get, and then kind of use this as a springboard to get going on what direction the board thinks that this should go.
Yeah, the skeleton,
Yeah.
the skeleton is here.
Right.
And so, so after I kind of thinking about like, oh, Halloween is coming. But anyway, the skeleton of the language is here. And I think, once we have, I mean, this is the committee meeting, and this is exactly why we open up for everybody to comment. And so we can gather as much information as possible, for Roseanne to move forward. So I think this is wonderful. Then, now we kind of know, where the, the thoughts are, the thoughts are at, we have some preliminary suggestion. So I think we can continue to refine the language probably at the next telehealth meeting. And I think it's going to be in September, like you say, right, Roseanne?
I will say that meeting is going to be mostly going over the survey results. The topics of supervision via video conferencing and possibly also this might take a little bit longer to flesh out than just that meeting, because we're going to be really digging down and discussing the results, and that's going to be as part of the same day as a board meeting.
Right.
So, but I think that'll give us a good starting point with the results as to where to move forward with this in future meetings from there.
And you're comfortable with a timeline that, we will go through, the P&A and, in order to catch up with the legislative cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's when we're dealing with topics kind of this big, it might take some time. It's not really something that can be rushed. We can try. we did this today because we're trying to get this going as soon as we can, because we understand the urgency of it, but at the same time, it's got to go through the whole discourse and we have to get the feedback. So it might not just be 1 or 2 meetings, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Like, we'll look at the results and then, you know, it'll play out from there. A big reason that we do these committees instead of just rushing out and proposing something without talking to anybody is so that we have a legislative package that, you know, is really, we've heard everybody's voice and we've had time to consider it thoroughly. So we're kind of at the beginning of that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, you know, this having a language, you know, in place is already a very big step because, you know, drafting things from the scratch is always the most challenging. I think that refining process is actually going to be more fun, you know, and people can, you know, the public can really, you know, take the time to, you know, to hash out, you know, some of the potential, you know, whatever, you know, the aspect of it. So I think that would be really great. So in that sense, I don't think we need any motions or any action from the board, from the committee. So so I will go ahead and close the discussion for this topic and then move to the second one, which is the discussion of possible recommendation of amendments to clarify telehealth laws for associate and trainees. So Roseanne, please.
Yep. So this particular piece is clarifying various pieces of law where we discovered that due to COVID, the law was unclear regarding telehealth services and where does the law where can we make some improvements? So I'm going to go through, we've got the language in a few different attachments just to kind of separate it so it's easier to look at today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So one area of the law that's a little bit unclear, let me start with associates in telehealth. Marriage and family therapy associates and trainees are both explicitly permitted already in law to perform services via telehealth. It says so in the telehealth code section of law, which is Business and Professions Code 2290.5. It also says that specifically in the Marriage and Family Therapy Practice Act, which is it's in 4980.43.3I, where it says right off the bat, an associate or trainee can provide services via telehealth. So there's no question.
Roseanne? You accidentally muted yourself mid-comment.
There we go. Okay. So there's no question about that MFT trainees and associates can do telehealth. So it's not clarified as well regarding ASWs and associate professional clinical counselors and APCC trainees. The associates are allowed to do it, but it's really a subtle distinction. It's not called out. Business and Professions Code section 23.8 states that licensees are also also means associates, and therefore technically APCCs and ASWs can do services via telehealth, but it's not explicitly stated. So we're working this year in the omnibus bill to add the codes to add associates in ASWs and APCCs into Business and Professions Code 2290.5, which is the telehealth statute. That will clarify it. We're also proposing in this particular proposal that we take that a step further in the proposal you're considering today. And attachment A actually goes as far as to put affirmative statements that associates can provide services via telehealth in LCSW law and also in LPCC law to mirror what LMFT law already says. So that's one piece that's under consideration for you today. Second, we're talking about associates, we have to also talk about trainees. The law does not specifically address whether social work interns or professional clinical counselor trainees can provide services via telehealth. Whereas, as I've just said, in 2290.5 and in MFT licensing law, it specifically states this. Social work interns and PCC trainees are not permitted to count pre-degree hours like MFT trainees are. And so their supervision requirements are a little less stringent, although the school still has the responsibility to make sure that they are supervised. So we're proposing a couple of clarifying amendments about trainees as well in attachment A. We would propose to amend the telehealth law, which is section 2290.5, to specify that professional clinical counselor trainees can provide services via telehealth. I would note that we have not done the same for social work interns. NASW California has expressed a preference that a similar clarification not be made for social work interns because their general preference is to leave social work interns out of the law. They note that social work schools already have their own policies. Also, I would propose to amend the LPCC law 4999.46.3J to correspond with the LMFT law that affirmatively states trainees can perform services via telehealth. And again, NASW California has expressed a preference for their interns that this not be done for the same reason. And then finally, in attachment A, I suggest language in Business and Professions Code section 4980.42 and 4999.36 to state that experience gained via telehealth is at the discretion of the school, the supervisor, or both the school and supervisor together. And so you will see that language. That's a little awkward. At the last meeting, we had a suggestion that we say the school and or the supervisor. I don't think that Ledge Council is going to allow the and or language. So if there's concerns about the way that it's currently drafted, we can definitely discuss those. So that's what you see in attachment A, and I'd like to actually stop here and discuss these changes in attachment A before we move forward any further.
Thank you, Roseanne. This is very technical, and yet it's also very important because that is one of the steps to, accomplish, the role and the responsibilities for this committee. And so, so I like the languages. I don't have any problems with that. So Susan, what do you think? You're okay with the language?
Yes, I'm okay with the language. I'm not at all concerned with the language. As you know, from what I've said before, what I'm concerned about is that by the time we put this into law, everybody will have come up with their own policies, doing things the way they think are the best way to proceed. So I feel at a loss about how to deal with this. I understand what Steve is saying is that we have to have legislation. And because we have to have legislation, I agree with the wording. It's totally accurate, but I just don't know any way around it that would make it more timely.
Yes, we share your sentiments, and it's so fun. I watch too many Olympics nowadays, and I'm just gonna throw, one of the favorite saying of the 400-meter hurdles go winner, Sydney McLaughlin, and she said, "Trust the process." That's sometimes all we can do for now. Trust the process. So thank you, Susan. And so I am going to open up. Actually, I'm not. So moderator, would you please open up the Q&A panel and we can hear from the public meeting? I mean, the public comments.
This is a moderator. I've again opened the moderator. I can't even say my own name. I've opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to comment, please click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field and submit that to our panelists. You may also click on that hand icon next to your name to raise your hand. Our first comment comes from Jay Alley. Jenny, you may open your line.
Good morning, or good afternoon almost now. This is Jennifer Alley with CAMP. And again, I appreciate the thoughtful conversation. Specific feedback on the language for MFTs, the 4980.42. We did have some concerns with the use of the word or. But overall, we'd like, it's just not clear. We thought that might leave it up for some, if there was a disagreement between the school's policy and the supervisor's expectations, or supervisor's comfort level with that individual utilizing telehealth. So we just didn't know how if that was clearly articulated, if there could be a better way, but don't have a specific amendment or recommendation for you on that. But taking a step back, we really think that, again, the survey results will be very helpful in developing a rubric around this. We do have concerns with allowing, trainees and associates to perform telehealth with no clear cap on that we could be having newly licensed individuals without in-person experience. The BBS survey is really thoughtful in the way that the questions were developed to allow percentages for telehealth and if that should be done. And so, again, I know I'm repeating myself. We really think that data is going to be helpful in developing the rubric and helping us fine tune any language. Particularly, I guess talking isn't very easy for me today. If the supervisor has concerns with allowing the associate or the trainee to utilize telehealth, right, that there needs to be that check there. And so I just don't know if that's clear. Obviously, consumer protection is always our concern, but, access, in rural areas also needs to be a balance. And so we just acknowledge how complicated telehealth is. And so we just, again, would like to see the survey before we make any commitments or fine tuning on language. So thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I do appreciate your openness and listening to our concerns and comments.
Thank you, Jen. We love your comments also. And, the collaboration with the associations is always important for us. That's how we make the legislation, more pertinent to, to the public and more, just understand, what the public needs. So thank you. Any other comments from the
No other
public?
requests at this time.
Okay, thank you. So Roseanne, now, I think, you have a question about, whether, that language, the school and or the supervisor, might have a problem, from the legislative.
Yeah, this came
So
up. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. You go ahead.
Sorry, and this came up last time. So we had a commenter for an agency. I think we had drafted it the school, but sometimes the supervisor is really on the groundwork. So we thought maybe the supervisor. But when we said the school, the supervisor, it's like there was a concern there could be some disagreement which one it was. So we added the kind of came to the and or. But I get that's not, it's still not perfect. I'm not sure what the best, they're supposed to, if you look at subsection E above, it says it's supposed to be coordinated between the school and the site. So maybe it's just appropriate to say the school and the site. I mean, if they disagree, I mean, they're supposed to be working in conjunction. Yeah, I'm not sure how the best way to handle that is.
Right. So, so the question really is about what the practice is supposed to be, who should be making those agreements. So my experience is that, that oftentimes, the field supervisor really, is the one who's in charge of, assigning tasks, about what activities pertinent to, the clinical experience. So, so in that sense, and yet, also, the field supervisor also is in the direction, of the school, what is also appropriate. So, so I would actually say that, both are accurate, but at the same time, there are just so many different ways of, how to manage, the decision. So, so do you think that the and or would have problem, or is it better to just have it, spell out, that the school supervisor, or the school and supervisor, because that's exactly just the combinations.
I think that the and or language is going to have problems with ledge council. I looked back and I couldn't find any instances of that being used in law and statute, which is what has to go through ledge council. There are a few instances where we use it in regulation, but that's regulation is a different review process and a different agency signing off. I think that if I submit this language to ledge council, who ultimately drafts it into a bill, I think they're going to push back on us using the term and or, which is why I wrote the alternative, which is the school, the supervisor, or the school and the supervisor together. It provides three clear options.
Right.
But Jen does make a point that, you know, if they disagree, it does pose a problem. Although I don't know that it's the board's place to mediate that.
Right. Right. Right.
They're supposed to be working together, you know, to give the student the best education possible.
Yes. So my inclination, you know, just being a field supervisor for so many years, that I think that if we safely say the school and the site, you know, and that encompasses a little bit more, you know, and shall assess the appropriateness. I think, you know, that probably is the safest way, you know, and, you know, when we say that, you know, the site, you know, it also, you know, means that it's not just about, you know, who, it really is about the agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that is actually, you know, probably, you know, broad enough, you know, to just you know, cover, you know, the essence, you know, that's you know, the site is basically, you know, providing the experience that the school wants the, you know, the trainees or interns to have. And so how does it work out? We don't know. But, you know, in essence, in the spirit, they should be working together.
Yeah, I think the point at the last meeting that I think it was Sierra Smith brought up was that, you know, that one is usually, you know, the site's really the ground level, and, you know, they're seeing a lot of students come through, and it might not be possible for them to deeply collaborate on each student. But I don't think that's the intent. I think the intent is that there's some communication going on between the school and the site to the best interest of the trainee, and they can kind of decide amongst themselves who's going to take the lead. But it's really the school and the site, you know, however they decide to do it should be a united front, sort of.
Yes, yes, yes. And so, you know, I don't know about the MFT programs, but, you know, even so, you know, when I supervise the social works interns, you know, there are always visits and, you know, trainings and collaborations. So I think in that sense, it does cover, you know, that, you know, whose responsibility of do what, and but not really, you know, with the language to imply, you know, that the school and you know, and the supervisor has to sit down together, have a meeting, and to write it out how many percentage, and not those at all. And so I personally, I feel comfortable of just, you know, basically saying that, you know, the school and the site, you know, or yeah, the site, you know, and I think that would probably suffice.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. And so, you know, so let's see, you know, how should we move forward? So Roseanne, do you have what you need, you know, in order to, you know, continue to work on this this particular two sections?
Yeah, for attachment A, I have what I need. I'll change the school to the site, to school and the site, and then we'll go forward from there. We'll decide at the end of this item whether it's going to go back to this committee or back to or go to P&A.
Right, right. I think that's a good idea. And you know, and if the public has any more comment, let's save it, you know, and for Roseanne to also, you know, talk about the next one, and we can go from there. So Roseanne, you know, so I think there is the face-to-face issue, right? The leftover
Yes.
one. Yes.
So moving on to the face-to-face issue, which is attachment B, the language is shown there. All right. No, it's attachment B, the practicum clarification, face-to-face. So since the board, it sounds like is determined, or the committee is recommending that all trainees, we're clarifying the law that all trainees are going to be able to provide services via telehealth, and it's going to say that affirmatively in the law. Then a question arises about the face-to-face practicum hours that trainees are required to get as part of their degree program. And we're talking about LMFT and LPCC trainees here. Both of these types of trainees must, as part of their qualifying degree program, gain a certain specified number of face-to-face practicum experience hours counseling individuals, families, or groups. And so the requirement can be found in the section we just talked about. The reference to face-to-face can also be found in the degree requirements for older degrees. However, I don't recommend changing the law for that. So considering the amendments as a whole, let's see, they are going to be in 49, we can just look at 4980.36 as an example. I'm proposing some language to delete the face-to-face requirement that says that basically, hang on, I'm trying to get to that page. Here we go. Delete the face-to-face requirement for the practicum, and then say add some language that says something like the school, the supervisor, or both the school and the supervisor may utilize their discretion to incorporate a mix of in-person and telehealth services. That way there's no confusion about whether or not it can be via telehealth. So I'll open that up for discussion. And I should say that I didn't include that in the old MFT degree requirements and the old LPCC degree requirements that had to be begun by 2012 and completed by 2018, because those are done and over. Those degrees are already closed. I did include it in the out of state, just so it's clear for out of state applicants that the telehealth will be allowed as well.
Right. So, so the language, basically, it will totally incorporate what we talk about, what I just proposed, the school and the site, or all these combination options, and then the language is about may utilize their discretion to incorporate a mix of in-person and telehealth experience. And so I think this is great. I like the language. So, Susan, any of your any comments from you? Susan, we cannot hear you.
I said, no, trust Roseanne to cover all bases and to hear what the public has said about this too. And
Absolutely.
I assume that once we get all the responses, we may keep it exactly the same, or we may make some amendment.
Right. Okay, sounds very good. So, moderator, would you please open up the Q&A and we can hear from the public?
This is the moderator. We've again opened the Q&A panel, and if you'd like to make a comment, you can click on that Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Or you may also raise your hand by clicking on the small hand icon next to your name. Our first comment comes from Ben Caldwell.
Mhm.
Ben, you may open your line.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Ben Caldwell, MFT. The mixed language in attachment B introduces some questions. For example, because it says that they can work to at discretion to introduce a mix, does that mean that it would be prohibited for a trainee to go through their entire practicum only doing telehealth, this thing that many trainees have just done? Because you are proposing deleting the face-to-face language here, and because it's already explicit in law and you're working on making it even clearer that trainees are specifically allowed to conduct telehealth, I wonder whether that mixed language is needed at all, and whether the intention is best met here by just deleting the term face-to-face. Thank you.
Good question. So, Roseanne, what do you think? Now actually, it's so funny is that when Ben proposed that, it's kind of like this very consistent with the social workers. The language itself. Because when you yes, didn't think about it, right?
That makes a good point. I mean, if we just, okay, so assuming that looking at the language, if we just said, like I'm reading the MFT, a minimum of 50 hours of experience counseling individuals, couples, or families, and it's already affirmed that that the school that trainees can do telehealth, and that the school and the site shall address the appropriateness. We say that in 4980.42 in attachment A. I think that probably covers it. I mean, the only question is if we face it now. Telehealth is not necessarily face to face, but we're kind of already saying that we're okay with telehealth. So unless there's some reason that we're not okay with that hours being, we feel there's a difference of it being over the phone versus video. I think it's fine to delete. I mean, that's not the direction we're going at all. I think it's fine to just delete face to face because it's confusing.
Right. And then not adding the other languages like Ben say.
Not adding the second sentence about the school or the supervisor in the mix.
Right. Because
it basically,
yeah, go ahead.
It basically does the same thing. It's just said elsewhere.
Well, and also, the whole intention really is just trying to clarify that they are allowed to do this and do this, to do A and B. And when you don't say it, it doesn't mean that they, that's right. It doesn't mean that we're excluding or not. So by not clearly spelling out which, for that statement, that's for the language, it really just basically specifically saying that call out, you can be in person or telehealth. And like Ben say, there might be some sort of like, modality or high level or lower level, we don't know, whatever other services that we haven't covered. So question really is about like, if we're being more specific, is that actually create more trouble than not?
It could, yeah. I think Ben brings up a very good point.
Yes.
That we're saying it, if we covered it in attachment A,
right.
And I'm assuming that he feels okay about that. Then if you just have take out the face to face and don't say anything else, then that's clarifying because we're now saying elsewhere that trainees can do services via telehealth.
Absolutely, and we already said it in the other section. So I like it. So cool. Now, in that sense, let's public comments. Any feedback in regarding of this?
Our next comment comes from Jen Alley. Jen, you may open your line.
Hello again, it's Jennifer Alley with Camp. I think, Ben's pointed out, it is duplicative to have that second sentence if it is in the section that we talked about previously. But again, I am gonna, express our concerns about deleting the face-to-face language without analyzing the survey results. I mean, I think that the experience that, the question is, do we want, 100%, not in-person experience be coming through the schools, not criticizing the individuals that have been, in school during the pandemic, right? We're really looking forward, moving forward as a state, what type of experience do we want, graduates to have while they're applying for their associates? And so, it does seem to be that the definition of face-to-face is really moved to, virtual Zoom type interactions, but is this really, I just would like a little bit of pause before face-to-face is just completely eliminated without the industry feedback. I think what supervisors and schools, input on this based on their knowledge, skills, and experience will be really, really helpful. And so I just, pause and really think that data is necessary before moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. And so Roseanne, so this particular section is no longer dealing with the trainees, but really is the applicants, right?
This particular in B, it's still the trainees.
Oh, B is still the trainees.
Yeah, it's
okay.
It's the practicum. So they are still the trainees in school.
Right. Okay. Right.
So it's just deleting the language that basically says, it's basically leaving it to the school's discretion.
Right. Oh, yes. Okay. I think I got confused because I was jumping through different sections.
There's another attachment C deals with register.
ASW. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. Well, so any other comments? And Jen, thanks for the comments. And I think, I really appreciate, the thought of really utilizing the survey result, to guide the changes. So any other comments?
No, that concludes our requests for now.
Yeah. Okay, so Roseanne, now, so for this particular attachment B, how would you like to proceed? Because obviously, that we have, we can delete the face-to-face now, or we don't. Or we can, not adding the language, or we do.
So, okay. So I'm hearing a couple of different things. I think Ben's point about deleting that language is really a good one. But I'm hearing that Camp would like to see the survey results, and I think that's definitely fair. We don't want to, put the cart before the horse. So what I would suggest, and obviously we're not going to have time at the September 10th meeting when we see the survey results to go forward with all of this language like that day, because we have a board meeting that day too. So what I would say is we direct staff to make the amendment that Ben suggested to attachment B, where just delete face-to-face but not have any other sentence there. And then we need to set another telehealth committee meeting today. So the next meeting, the September 10th, is our last meeting on the books. We need to set more dates out for the future for the telehealth committee. So my thought is that we would bring it, once we saw the survey results and had to discuss them on September 10th, we bring it back to this committee one more time.
Yes.
To really to say, okay, now we've seen the survey results. Here's what we're proposing. Do we feel okay with moving this forward to policy and advocacy before, or is there any changes that we have before then?
Right. Sounds good to me, because I think, well, and the other, the other change you can also incorporate is about the site and the school, because of all, yeah. So basically, we can work on that. And again, this is work in progress. And so, so we can clean up some of the languages first, bring it back to to the board, after we incorporate some of the survey results. And then I think we can, we can certainly, have the committee to take a look one more time, and hopefully, we can catch the PNA meeting and go through that route.
Yeah, the PNA meeting is October 15th. So if we could have set another telehealth committee, telehealth committee meeting today, that's before October 15th, then that might allow at least some of the language to move forward.
Perfect. So we can probably, have, Steve, you can kind of like look at some of the options, and then we can talk about in the items for the future agenda items, which is actually that. Right now we're focusing on the language and not doing something illegal. So I think Sabina will be very happy. All right. So Roseanne, so I think you have another section, right, for that particular language? Yes.
So the last one is attachment C. And so that has to do with ASW registrants. So these are people that have graduated and are getting their experience hours under supervision. And ASW law has also got some wording in it that's caused confusion during COVID. ASWs are required by a law to obtain at least 750, and it says face-to-face individual or group psychotherapy hours in the context of clinical social work services. And that's shown in attachment D. The committee may wish to discuss clarifying whether these face-to-face hours may be in person, via telehealth, or some combination. Staff believe the main intent of the sentence is to ensure ASWs gain a specific amount of hours directly related to clinical social work. I think that's really what that sentence is really trying to get to, is not the face-to-face piece. I think that it's really the real intent is that the hours are directly related to clinical social work, since these are going to be clinical social workers. But the face-to-face piece in there is now causing confusion that it didn't used to cause really before COVID as much. So given that we are already proposing clarifying in the law that associates are already permitted to perform services via telehealth, staff recommends striking the term face-to-face in that sentence. And I think it can be struck. We're making clarifications elsewhere that associates can gain hours via telehealth. And so unless the committee thinks that a special exception needs to be made for these type of hours, we don't need to believe it. I don't believe that it's needed to affirmatively state how the hours must be gained for each type of hours. open up that to discussion.
So I think this is good. You know, if we strike up face to face and it's very consistent with what, you know, the other license type, you know, for with the other associate. So it's fine with me. Yeah. So Susan, any other comments about, you know, about deleting the face to face wording?
No, because I really think that we are dependent now on what we learn from these surveys. I think that's going to be the most important information that we have to go on.
Sounds good. Thank you. So moderator, would you please open the Q&A section?
This is the moderator. We've again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on this section, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to all panelists, or click on the hand icon next to your name. First comment comes from Rebecca Gonzalez. Rebecca, you may unmute your line.
Afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Rebecca Gonzalez with the National Association of Social Workers. Thank you for this discussion. And I also apologize, I had to leave the meeting for a while if you were wondering why I was radio silent, but I had to leave. But yeah, I think this change seems to make sense. The world has changed. I think we have all gotten used to the provision of telehealth services, and I don't think we want to go back to a buckets kind of atmosphere for counting how people gain their hours. So we are fine with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any other comments?
No other requests at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. And then we can close the Q&A panel. So Roseanne, so in that sense, so looks like, you know, we do have a plan, you know, then we can discuss an additional telehealth committee, you know, between, in either September or October. And do you need the language? I mean, you know, do we need to vote on the language right now, or do you want to just kind of, you know, leave it open?
So I do want to make a couple of changes. So we probably should vote. I would do a motion to make some changes and then bring back to reconsider. So the motion would be to direct staff, I think, to change the language in attachment 2 about the school and the supervisor. It would be to change the language. Let me see. Just say the school and the site instead of the school, the supervisor, or the school and the supervisor together. So change that in all the places in attachment A. I think I would strike the sentence about the mix of hours in attachment B, and then proceed to bringing to another telehealth committee meeting after the September 10th review of the survey results.
I like that motion. So I will make that motion. And Susan, would you like to second?
I'll second the motion.
Sorry to solicit your second, but I'm glad you make the second. All right. So any other public comments about the motion? Yeah, moderator, please.
All right, and we have again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment on the motion that has been presented, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists, or raise your hand by clicking the small hand icon next to your name. And seeing none, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, that would be great. Thank you. So Christina, I think we're ready to vote.
Hey, Susan Friedman,
Yes.
Christina Wong,
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And this is really wonderful discussion, and because it's so complicated, so I want to just really thank Roseanne to help it simplify it, organize the information so that, we really can methodically, think about how we can, make modernize, that language. So thank you so much. So the next one is the discussion for future meeting dates. Oh my goodness, it's right there. So, all right. So when would be a good one? So Steve, you have any
So,
suggestion?
so we are going to meet September 10th to go over the survey results. I'm looking at the calendar. I mean, honestly, I think to present, after we have that discussion, to look at the information that comes out of that meeting, I'm thinking looking at the week of September 20th through the 24th. I know
Yes.
we do have a board meeting on the 23rd that week, but I'm thinking that's probably the best week. What do you think, Roseanne?
I can't be there that week.
All righty.
Sorry.
Never mind. Sorry, I should have known
That's
that.
the one week I'm unavailable.
So,
Miss
what are your thoughts then,
Ann,
Roseanne? Like with, oh, sorry, Susan, go ahead.
I can't be there either on that Thursday because I have two other meetings already.
Okay, for the 23rd.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So how about on the 1st, October 1st?
Does that sound October 1st?
It's a Friday. Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody?
Yeah, it's good for me.
Going once, going.
That
Okay.
works.
So we can set the meeting at October 1st and yeah, it's fine.
We can set it for October 1st. We will follow that up and see. And if it doesn't seem to work, then we can really coordinate on the back end with a new date.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's tentatively, well, we will set it on October 1st, 9:00.
Hmm?
Perfect.
Unless you want to start at 6 or 7, make it easy.
Hey, I've done it before,
Anytime?
7:00.
No, 9:00 sounds good.
Okay. All righty. So that would be so I think we only need to probably set one for now for this year, right? And then, and then if we need to, set anything else, then we could just, maybe next week that we will have next week at the next meeting, we can have the same agenda item. So, so mark your calendar, which I'm trying to do, and then I'm not successful. Too many computers. So, all righty. So then let's see. Our next agenda item is public comments for items not on the agenda. So, moderator, your turn.
This is the moderator. We've again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a comment, just click on the Q&A icon on your screen, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists. Or click on the hand icon next to your name. For this open comment period, top comments will be limited to 2 minutes. And I am not seeing any requests for comment.
Nice. I hope we didn't scare the comments away. All right.
Oh, wait. Now we have one. See.
Here we go.
Jen Alley, you may open your line.
Thank you, you guys. I appreciate this is Jennifer Alley with Camp. I need to introduce myself for the record. I wanted to just thank the board for the discussion, appreciate, the additional time, the additional meeting being scheduled today to talk about the survey results before we button things up for policy and advocacy. We are trying to be respectful of the board's process and time, but we really just want the data before we make changes to statute. And so that's why I've been kind of wishy-washy, because Camp doesn't have like a formal keep face-to-face, don't keep face-to-face, right? We really just want the data to drive the recommendations before we take everything. And so we appreciate the board's approach to that. And so And we just, think that there might be some confusion on the interpretation of face-to-face right now with some of the waivers. And we're wondering if maybe the FAQs could be reviewed and possibly updated for anything that's changed regarding face-to-face in the FAQs. And so that is all. Thank you again, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you so much, Jen. Please don't be apologetic at all, but no, please, you don't need to, apologize. And we love the collaboration with, with the associations. And, I call it data informed, which is important. So, yep, I think that's a good direction to go. So Steve, looks like you may have some work to do, but I'm gonna leave that for you to, to respond. It's not on my plate right now. So any other comments for the items not on the agenda?
That was our last one, so I've closed the panel.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All righty. Suggestion for future agenda items? I don't have any. And Susan?
Not at the moment, because I really am very, very curious about those surveys.
Yes, that would be good. So we're all looking forward for the survey results and see what kind of, wonderful data that we're going to have. So I think this is about it, right? In that sense, this will be our, again, I like to say it every single meeting, our favorite agenda item, which is adjournment. So the time now is 12:37. Okay, not yet. Roseanne.
Do we do suggestions for future agenda items for the public?
Okay, sure.
Or did I miss that?
Yes, okay. So let's open the Q&A again for the suggestions for future agenda item.
This is the moderator. Our Q&A panel is still open. If you'd like to make a comment regarding future agenda items or provide a suggestion for a future agenda item, please raise your hand using the hand icon next to your name, or use that Q&A icon, type comment into the text field, and submit that to our panelists.
Do we see any?
I do not see any at this time.
Wonderful. So now we can officially move to the our favorite agenda item, adjournment. So the time is 12:38 p.m. and we will see you next time. Long awaited, the survey results on what is that, the date again, September 10th, right? Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you, moderator, for helping us, with the flow of the meeting. We can't really do it without you. And thanks to all the staff and the public to participate. And have a wonderful long weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.